a sense of where I was before I started getting into photography. So to start with advertising, I'm going to show you one ad that I did, and it's the only ad that I ever did that was really successful or had any merit or won any awards. And the reason it was, the only one is, excuse me, that was basically the first ad that I ever really got produced. And what it was a print ad for Wonderbra. The idea being that if you lifted up the 3D glasses on the right and looked at the image, the breasts would pop up, and to give you a sense of how effective the Wonderbra were. And it really did incredibly well. It won loads of awards, got a lot of people talking. I thought I was the king, absolute king of advertising. One of my first ads, I was rocking, I was rolling, and I thought my life was set, it was made. Every other ad that came after that was pretty bad. Certainly not on that level. Won a few more awards and what have you, but carried on. But along the way, something really terrible happened. By the way, this was at TBWA in Johannesburg. Unfortunately, my dad passed away under really bad circumstances. And I was really struggling with things. I was struggling with the situation in South Africa. This was 1997. And I was struggling with advertising. And everything came to a head, and I decided that I'm going to leave. And I decided to travel to the place that was as far away as I could get from South Africa. I really wanted to get away from everything and just be on my own. So I went to Alaska. This isn't my image, and I'll none of the next few images are mine, but it just gives you a sense of the grandeur of this place and the wilderness and the wildness of it. And for about 3 months, I lost myself in the wild of Alaska, Canada, and Northern America, basically. And these are the type of places that I was living in. I was living in the wild. It was incredible. I was alone most of the time. And I was really starting to get back to myself, which is tremendous.
I have to say, that's a fantastic bathroom that you've got right there, huh? What a view from the loo, as it were.
No, that was it. It was, and so many scenes like this. I mean, like I said, these aren't my photographs. I wasn't really taking photographs in. I was trying, but I wasn't doing any justice to it. I was just enjoying the wild and being on my own. This is Moraine Lake in Canada, a place where I spent some really formative time. And, after a few months, I started feeling, this real connection with the wild. I started feeling an understanding of it. And while I was there, I was also doing a lot of reading. And it led me to some really profound thinking. And, one of the things I read was by a guy called Michael Doris. And he is an American writer and anthropologist. And he said something which really stuck with me. This is a Native American boy, probably around the age of 12, 13, photographed in the late 1800s. And through his anthropological work, he discovered something quite remarkable in interviewing Native Americans and what have you. And I'm going to read you this little segment. He said, though he had never before traveled alone outside of his village, the Plains Indian male was expected at puberty to venture solo into the wilderness. And there he had to fend and sustain himself while avoiding the menace of unknown dangers. And there he had to absolutely remain until something happened that would transform him. Every human being, these tribes believed, was entitled to at least one moment of personal enabling insight. And he goes on to say, anthropology proposes feasible psychological explanations why this flash was eventually triggered. It was fear, it was fatigue, it was reliance on strange foods, the anguish of loneliness, stress, and the expectation of ultimate success that all contributed to a state of heightened receptivity. So every sense was quickened, everything you were alerted to perceive deep meaning until at last there was an interpretation of an unusual event. a dream, a chance encounter, an unexpected vista, and it reverberated with metaphor. And he ends off by saying, through this unique prism, abstractly preserved in a vivid memory or a song, a boy caught foresight of both his adult persona and his vocation, and the two were inextricably entwined. So inevitably they went out there and they had an epiphany, and they came back and recounted it to their forebears, and they, through that, became a man. And the remarkable thing was, I was out there, I was hungry, I was alone, I was stressed, I was facing danger. In that part of the world, we often think of African wild as dangerous, but we don't go walking with lions all that often. And in North America, it's quite different. You walk in the wild there, and you are basically among brown bears, grizzly bears, grizzlies being the most dangerous, and you are continuously surrounded by them. And I saw many when I was there, but I had one particularly remarkable encounter, which really did really turn into an epiphany for me. And it made me realize what I should be doing with my life. And what it involved was coming down from the mountains. I'd been up in the mountains for about 4 days. And on the fourth night, so it's still light up there this time, still light up there in summer at about 9, and I was walking down. And it was starting to snow. I didn't have much cold weather gear. And I thought, I've really got to get down. So I started heading down this mountain, down this one precarious track. And I went around a corner, and there was this grizzly bear with its cub. And it didn't see me, thankfully. I was probably 10 meters away. But I thought, there's no other way down. Because it was quite a precipitous little slope. So I had to go back up that mountain. And as it got dark, I realized I'm going to have to stay there. I had no food. I was freezing. And I sat on that mountain, and I felt really sorry for myself. And I just looked over this vista as the snow came down. And I took it all in, and I thought about that bear. And in that moment, I had this epiphany. I started feeling a true connection to everything, to that bear, to the wilderness around me, to the globe. It was remarkable. And it was because of the situation I was in that I had that heightened perception. It was a tremendous moment. And I didn't sleep at night, and I made it my way down the mountain by the time the bear had gone the next morning. But it changed me totally. And you would think you wouldn't go back into the corporate world after that. You would follow your passion and go back into the wild. But I went straight back into that.
Although, hold on a second. The corporate world is full of grizzly bears. So maybe that prepared you for the kind of fight you were going to have to face.
I wish it had. Oh, I had lots of fights after that. Yeah, I know. I went back into advertising, and because I was traveling there, I dropped my portfolio off in New York, and I lived there for about 2.5 years. That was this is a modern, it's not my picture again, but that was my view from Brooklyn. That's a modern view. But I struggled in New York. I really struggled being in the city. I butted heads with all the advertising people. I was not happy in the city. I don't know what the heck I was doing there. And then something remarkable happened. Something awful happened when I was there was 9/11. And that was my view. And again, this had a profound effect on me. And it just reminded me that I shouldn't be in a city. I shouldn't be in this one. And I really wanted to get out. That place was changed after that. Not just for me, but it really was changed. And it was a remarkable time to be there. But I just knew that, everything came to a head for me, and I wanted to get out. I was lucky at that time to have met a wonderful woman. And she was Norwegian. And so we decided, okay, let's go back to South Africa for my sake, or let's go to Norway. And I loved skiing at the time. So I thought, let's go to Norway. And I thought, well, Norwegian people are nice. I mean, they're wonderful. They're friendly, they're vibrant, they're good looking, and this is Norwegian people to a T. But this was me during my 3 years there. Vikings are wonderful, but I really struggled to fit in with the society. You come from South Africa, and you go into a very socially democratic society, which is like a bit like Australia, I guess. It's a bit of a nanny state, but an uber nanny state. There are restrictions to everything. I struggled with that. I struggled with the culture, and particularly in advertising. In advertising, by nature, is a capitalist venture. It's driven by consumerism. Yet Norway, in the advertising industry, has this real irony in that, advertising is by nature capitalist, but it's driven by a socially democratic way of working. And I really struggled to work with the people there, because we'd have a pitch the next day and people's pens would be hanging in the air by 4:30. They'd just go home and the pitch is not finished. And I had to get out. So another sign, get out. But I came back to Cape Town and I carried on in advertising. And again, I just wasn't fitting in. I was enjoying myself. I had wonderful experiences in advertising, but I wasn't fitting in. But I started to realize gradually that there was another avenue out. One of the wonderful experiences I had was traveling to Lagos in Nigeria for a commercial for Guinness. And while I was there, I started photographing people. And I started meeting people and talking to them. And I started realizing that I really enjoy this engagement with people, especially grassroots people, down to earth people, real people, communicating with them, chatting with them, trying to portray their character and what have you. I wasn't doing very well at it, but it was a start. And it got me thinking, there's a way out of this. There's an avenue that I can try. And it's something I enjoy. I love meeting people. And I just kept on shooting there. I mean, half of the job was advertising, but on my own time, I was just photographing these incredibly colorful, wonderful people. And another wonderful trip related to advertising arose after that. I went to Madagascar with Operation Smile, who was one of our clients. And they invited me along to photograph the mission there. What Operation Smile does is they have volunteer surgeons and hospital staff who help kids with cleft palates and cleft lips. They surgically repair them, and they really change their lives. And they can go from being someone who looks quite grotesque, to be honest, to someone who can get by in society. And I fell in love with this kid. I had a real connection with her. There she is. Her name is Raisa. Now she has what they call a joker's lip, or joker's cleft, which essentially could be caused by an umbilical cord at birth stretched across the mouth. But she had this incredibly wide mouth. And she was adorable. She had literally the biggest laugh and smile you've ever seen. I loved it. But she needed surgery. And so I started focusing on it and basing my story, basing the photography I did and the narrative that I wanted on Raisa's journey through surgery. Excuse me. So, going under the knife, following this whole journey that she was going through, she and her mom were going through, it was fascinating. And I was completely absorbed by her, by all of the staff and what they were doing. It was remarkable. And as you can see, this was 180 degrees. This was the antithesis of the corporate world that I was in. And it just, the penny dropped, finally. I finally started listening to myself, and I thought, I want to be around those type of people. So I left. I finally left advertising in 2010. And I started traveling and I started photographing people. I started learning about Africa so much more about the people there. Some of the places I went to now are very tricky to get to. I was lucky to get there. This is in Getaway, Mali, which now is very much a no-go zone. Meeting people in the most impoverished circumstances, but realizing that they probably had more more gumption and character than many people I'd met, and trying to portray them. And it really, really gave me a true sense of joy and purpose to be around this. Of course, there was very little in the way of money in this, but I was just happier, and it's important. And I just started learning so much. And then along the way, a few different journeys.
Hey, it's Brett.
That's Brett Wild, another advertising guy, similar sort of mentality as me. Just wanted to get out. Brett became a film director. Now he's up in Kenya. And Brett invited me along in his little smart car to travel up to Ngorongoro Crater and back. And we had an incredible trip. And as most trips that are interesting transpire, that's terrible wording, sorry. Some of the most interesting trips go wrong all the time. This trip went wrong, left, right, and center. I mean, we were trying to prove a point that you can take a little car like this up through Africa. But the fact of the matter is we took the worst roads. We broke down on day one. We broke down a week after that. And a couple of weeks after that, we broke down for the third time. It was an absolute fiasco. And therefore, we had the best time because we were stuck in these places and we would meet the most incredible people. And people loved seeing this car. They just hadn't seen anything like it. So it was an amazing trip. And while we were there...
Just one or two comments there quickly. Tim Hearn says, morning, Anton. Good to hear your voice again. Well done on doing this.
Hello, Bugger.
And Karen van Rensburg says, your photos are inspiring. Such a gift.
Oh, she's sweet, man. I paid her for that. Magic to see. Well, here you go. During this trip, we documented it photographically. So every bit of writing we did, we put in situ in the environment. And it just started a different way of thinking for me. This is a story of a school teacher who, under his own initiative, started his own school in this very impoverished community. And those are the kids with him in his classroom. And that's a story in the background there. And another journey was one I made to Botswana, actually over Christmas Day. I was crossing the border on my motorcycle, feeling very sorry for myself once again, but also happy to be out and about on Christmas Day. And of course I was alone, but this family invited me in to their home for Christmas. Isn't that wonderful? And I read the Bible and we sang Christmas carols in 45-degree heat. It was remarkable. And that sensation of heat inspired me to just try something different. So I started baking my prints to give a sense of how hot it was there. And, people would still be wearing their traditional clothing in this extreme heat. So I was trying new things. I was having fun. These are graves in Botswana, which the local tradition is to cover with hessian and to protect them from the sun. It is ridiculously hot there in summer. And again, I was mainly focused on portraiture and loving it, meeting people. I did reportage. I've been going in and out of local communities like Masipumalele, writing about it, publishing in Sunday Times and various other magazines about these little communities. And I've done exhibitions. This is on Woodstock where I used to work. And I'd often just take my camera down the road every single day and meet people and document them. And this turned out to be an exhibition for charity that I did. So gradually, I started making my way back to the wild. More and more of my stories would be about the wilderness and the wild. Not that I'm moving away from photographing people. I still do it all the time. But I'm lucky enough we are all lucky enough to have access to the wilderness. And I'm also lucky enough now to work for Getaway magazine. And this is from a recent trip and for a story that's coming up in the next issue on Kruger National Park. And what I've tried to do, and often you only see this in retrospect, but is to look for a character in these animals. Find a personality. find patterns, find some sort of life in there. And even with birds, now my wife is a remarkable birder, and I love her to pieces. And one of the things we love doing the most is birding, and it's inspired me to get more and more into bird photography, which is one hell of a challenging area. And but because of the challenges and because of the creatures, because of what you learn about them, I absolutely love bird photography, and I've got a lot to learn still, but it really is probably my number one passion right now, which you'll see a bit later as well.
It is amazing how the first time that you photograph a bird, be that, even if it's just a portrait on a stick, which Andrew Averley keeps going at me about this bird on a stick thing. It's just, anyone can do that. But the point is, even if it is just bird on a stick and it's a portrait and there's the catchlight in the eye and it's looking the right way, and you just kind of go, man, I've got to do another one, and you just keep going and keep going and keep going. This for me has certainly been the ultimate bug. I mean, I know nothing about birds. I know they fly and they eat stuff, but you as you say, you start learning their habits, and you just want to improve and do more and learn more. It's fantastic. It's such a bug.
Absolutely, and you get to learn about their character, and that's probably one of the things I enjoy the most. You have to understand what they're going to do, because they're so quick. These birds are not lazy. This, this is a, good Lord, I'm probably going to get this wrong.
Careful now.
I'm not going to mention the full name. I'm too nervous. But
you know what? If you mention it, I'm pretty sure at least 3 or 4 people will WhatsApp me straight away and provide the right answer. If Roger Machin is doing it,
that I know is a pygmy kingfisher. But that, all of this happens very quickly. You've got to understand and be in the right place at the right time. That's a sunbird that I shoot all the time, and I just totally forget the name because I'm nervous. But this is in Kirstenbosch, which is literally up the road from us. So I'm often there just photographing birds, and I choose, I photograph many photos, but I choose the ones that I think bring out the bird's character. To me, this guy looks like a general,
Okay, Anton, so that's apparently, according to Andrew John Taylor, that's a southern double collared.
Southern double collared, thank goodness. I knew that, but I'm so nervous.
Yeah, we'll chalk it down to that. Eh?
Tim, I know, is just shaking his head right now. Absolutely. These are white-fronted bee eaters. I got that. There we go. Now, this is photographed in Krug on a bridge above the Lavuvu River. This is a birder's paradise. I could stay on this bridge in February, the whole month, every day, and just photograph bee eaters. They're my favorite subject. I love them. Back in Kirstenbosch.
Oh, nice.
Southern double collared, going for a bit of juice, going for a refuel. And this, I tell you what, it just keeps me entertained and happy. Back to Kruger again with white-fronted bee eaters. There's such characters. Birds are just incredible characters. And what I do try to do is just bring some of that character across. And of course, the large mammals. This is for an upcoming story for Getaway magazine in Walcherfonden Reserve in the Waterberg, which is an incredible area. I know a lot of you wildlife people know it very well. It's just incredible. Just trying to bring some of that character out.
Oh, beautiful.
You don't see these animals very often in daylight, but in winter, a place called Samara, they come out just before the sun sets. They go digging to ants, and I think you'll notice with these photos, I'm pretty close to them, and that's one of the things I really enjoy. And spending time, and my wife and I spent time with this aardvark we probably spent about 2 hours over 2 days, which is a lot. With him right next to him the whole time, just photographing him. He was incredible. And just getting to know these characters. I'm learning about wildlife photography. I look at a shot like this and I go, man, that's not a classic leopard shot. I could do so much better. But wildlife photography is hard, and that's why you keep coming back. It's not easy.
Exactly. You keep looking at it, you say, what, and I suppose that's part of the the challenge and also the perfectionism. You know, you know that you can do better, and it's just, you just keep going, and that's the passion. And I look at these pictures you're showing, and it comes through so well.
Oh, cheers, man. Yeah, I'm learning a lot, and that's what I love. You know, and just looking for shapes and form and character. This big W was photographed in Hwange in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is my old home, and also a place I return to very often because, ironically, because of the people. But the wildlife is tremendous. The people are out of this world. The friendliest, most wonderful people on earth. Vic Falls is my, I guess you could say, and then Zambezi is my my home, my heart place. I absolutely love that river. Absolutely love it. I'm sure a lot of you who are connected with wildlife travel will know that the Zambezi is now pumping with water. It's remarkable. The Okavango is filling up. And this was photographed 2 years ago, before BBC reported it as a river that was running dry. And now it is twice this volume. So it's a very special place to me. That's just above the waterfall there. And as you can see, I've also started to shoot landscapes more, especially for magazines. You really need to give people a larger vista. You know, it can't all be 400mm lens close-ups. And speaking about magazines, another thing I've learned is that you've got to cater for the copy. And so I've started shooting a bit differently, certainly using high key more, making space for potential copy, or other images or maps within the page. And it's another challenge. You know, you've got to think about these things when you're shooting. And I love shooting in high key. I really, really do. You know, it's a wonderful old technique, which with digital photography these days is wonderful because you can push it. And when you get textures like this, the giraffe, and you can bring those out, it's wonderful. You just feel like you're getting closer to them.
Absolutely. Your high key bird pictures that I've seen on your Facebook page recently, in the last couple of months, are just lovely. Really, really enjoy them.
Oh, cheers, man. I'll show a few of those later as well. Thank you, man. Much appreciated. This is a image that was used in a Getaway article I did last year on Tembe in the north of KZN. Lovely birding. Now these kingfishers, you know, well, I'm not going to talk about the bird, but the space around that was used beautifully, and that they actually put part of a map of that area in the open space, in the empty space there. It just really complemented the whole image. So I've started to think about the use of space and empty space a lot more. And also bringing people into it. Again, this is, if you've got readers who you want to draw in, you've got to actually try and put them in the picture. You try and get them to relate to the environment. So putting people in these environments is key. It's challenging, but it's a wonderful challenge. You know, what I like about this image are the boats in the background there. So, you know, the wildlife is still front and foremost, but you know, you get a sense that you can actually be a part of this experience. This is elephants crossing from Zimbabwe into Zambia. And, you know, the beauty of the wildlife up there is that these parks are all open. You know, these elephants don't have to have passports. They just go back and forth. Again, my favorite part of the world. This is Porphyry in the very north of Kruger National Park for an upcoming article. This is the fever tree forest there. It is, I don't think I've done it justice. One has to go to this forest and really experience it. It is remarkable. It's the biggest fever tree forest in the Southern Hemisphere, I believe. Well, that's what I read. But anyway.
I assume that you've all been wearing, you know, steel-plated soled boots there. Because if it's anything like the 3 fever trees I've got down the side of my house, you can't walk down there without it spearing through the bottom of your foot.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now that's my wife on taking the rear there, and she's got some very solid boots on there. Again, this is about bringing people into the photo, and just using challenging but wonderful lighting conditions as well. This is a treatment which just gives it a bit of atmosphere, as you can see. One of the best photographers I know who does this is Tegan Cuniff, who used to photograph for Getaway magazine. So if you want to learn anything about using light like this, Tegan Cuniff is the person you should follow. The other thing about this is what I wanted to portray was that in magazine, you've also got to think about your page format. So whereas shooting a landscape in a landscape format is ideal, you've also got to cater for single page and potentially covers. This wouldn't make a cover, but it could make a single page. So to try and capture that landscape in a portrait format is key. And I've tried to do the same here.
What a lovely tree.
Yeah. Now I did this using a vertorama. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was a panorama, but vertically. So I shot 2 shots. Yeah. There was no way I could do that, achieve that that was a 16 mil, but I shot it. I shot top and bottom and then joined the two. And with technology these days, I use Lightroom. On Lightroom, you can stitch it together seamlessly. It's just wonderful. And it's great for portraits, landscapes in portrait. This is Lana Gorge, also in Porphyria, Northern Kruger, an extraordinary region. That was one shot with a 16 mil. A lot of the equipment I have is actually belongs to my wife, and she had the 16 mil, and I've only started playing with it recently. It is an outstanding lens. It's just incredible. This is for an upcoming story in the Waterberg. This is Maritaba, which is part of the Marakele National Park. Beautiful mountains in the background, wonderful wildlife. Just trying to capture that vertically as well.
Love the colors there.
Yeah, I know these red mountains are the red dirt. The mountains are very rich in iron, so they've got that orangey red color to them, as you can see here. This is on the Marakele side. It's kind of the reverse of those mountains you saw there at sunset. So that's sunset, and that's also sunset. That's a similar angle. Yeah. Just trying to capture the vertical. And along the way, aside from magazines, aside from the luxury of being able to tell a story with words, I like to try and tell those stories with narratives as well. So where I can, and this is a terrible image because the nose is out of focus, but is tell narratives. And this was a remarkable experience I had with African wild dogs in Zamanga Game Reserve, and we followed them on a hunt. Now, what I was doing was actually trying to photograph these wild dogs at a very low angle. This is, oh dear, hold on. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
That's all right. While you're doing that, Angela Podbury is saying, so enjoying seeing your photos and hearing your voice in my lounge room in Australia. But your photos are amazing.
The Aussies! Hello, Aussie. How are you doing? Good to hear you. Thank you. So I wanted to photograph them at a low angle. This is obviously quite close up at a high angle. And wild dogs these were particularly habituated, so we could get close to them, but they're generally okay with relatively close proximity. So this is on a wide angle, shooting pretty close. And I wanted to shoot lower. So I got down into what I thought was an empty warthog hole. And as I was shooting, I heard this tremendous rumble, and this bloody warthog came out at full tilt. I took a bit of skin off my leg. It came out right between my legs, and I was lucky I didn't lose everything. And these buggers come out of there at one hell of a tilt. But what it did was, what it meant was that now the dogs are something to chase. So they went after this poor warthog, and I feel very guilty because they took it down. And what proceeded to happen was that we followed them for a whole day, and the day after that, and all they did was just go after warthogs. And they would go down their holes and ferret them out. So I managed to get in front of this one and photograph it quickly before getting out the way. And of course, the chase ensued, and it's brutal. It really is beautiful. I've never seen such brutal predators in my life. But the dynamic, the chase is, you know, I've got a whole series of images on this. It's incredible and quite gruesome. I've got to say there was a predator there, and there's part of the fetus. So they are ruthless and strangely lovable creatures.
All at the same time.
Yeah. Another bit of narrative here is a trip I did to the Masai Mara. Just going back to people, I love connecting with people, and you know, Masai Mara is a remarkable place because the communities that have relied on that place before Europeans came and still do rely on that place are crucial to the environment, to the economy. But they've segmented a large part of that area for national wildlife. And but they're working on programs on the periphery in conservancies. As you might know, the Maasai people are very, very beholden to their cattle. They have started bringing cattle into the conservancies to feed in the wildlife areas. And it's a remarkable program because if you stagger it, if you manage it very well, they can actually be beneficial to the environment. With their dung and with their urine, they can actually bring nutrients back into the soil, which encourage growth and attract wildlife and predators and what have you. So I started photographing the cattle rather than the wildlife, to the horror of the guests that I was with from America and Europe. And they were just absolutely horrified that I would even be interested in this. But to me, it was fascinating. And this is the reality. It's been like this for hundreds of years, you know, before we came along in the last few decades. And people have forgotten how important the Maasai people are to that region. And there's huge conflict there. Socially, it's a real struggle. So they do, excuse the pun here, but they do leave the Maasai people very much in the dark. And when foreigners do want to interact with them, it's only on a very superficial basis. So I really enjoyed my time with them there. And then trying to capture stories in one image, it's a hell of a challenge. But try and let the image tell the story itself. And this one was taken up in roads in central KZN, just up against the Drakensberg, middle of winter. These shepherds were looking among this huge flock for newborn lambs and picking them up and pushing the herd aside so they could protect them. It was a remarkable thing to see. Again, telling stories in one image.
That looks like trouble waiting to happen. One narrow gap and
yeah. Luckily, there's no one in that coffin. This is again on the Zambezi, my favorite place on earth. This was quite remarkable because we were on a game drive there, and the driver said, well, the guide said, listen, do you want to see the human remains at the? I said, hell yes. And he pointed down towards the bank of the river. You can see how close this is to the river. And he said, have a look at that. And at first I thought it might have been a poacher or a fisherman had been killed by elephant or hippo. There's a lot of elephants and hippos there. And he said, no. Anthropologist has worked out that this is an ancient burial site. And I went down to have a look. And in the strata of the riverbank, there are human remains deep down in the soil. So it certainly looks like a burial site with clay pots and what have you. So they put this at about 500 years. And I was worried about it getting washed away. And, that whole bank has been eroded because elephants have been coming down there. So, and I wanted to pick up the skull and rescue it, but he said, no, leave it there, which I did. And so it's remarkable to discover these things in these wild places, just to remind oneself that this is part of humanity. This is where people used to live, among the wild.
It's remarkable that it's so well preserved as well.
It is. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
So I've got another comment here from, I'm sure you remember Mike Lewis. It says,
oh, yeah.
Hi, Q and Anton. It's been a long time. Anton, can't remember what jobs we shot together at Hunt's Days, but I've been following your photographic journey for a long time. Even your mad adventures with Brett. It's great to now hear your backstory. The background in storytelling from the ad industry leapfrogs you into an awesome photographic storyteller. Excited to see your journey ahead.
Oh, what a shame. Mike, you legend, man. I love shooting with you. So good. I've been watching your images on Instagram and what have you as well. It's just remarkable, man.
Yeah, you're gonna have to tune in because I've invited him to do a prezzo here as well. So it's going to be his turn very soon.
Oh, brilliant! I can't wait, man. I have lots of questions for you, Mike. Good to hear from you, you legend. What a pleasure! All these wonderful people.
It's so fantastic.
It is, eh? Yeah. Yeah. So, just going back to character, something I'm starting to looking for characters before I shoot now, and trying to portray them when I shoot as well. And I love this old Giraffe. She was a real old dame. I don't think I did her justice at all, but I just thought she was such a sweetie. Got it. And then what I've been enjoying the very most is photographing birds, like I said. But I've started to print them now on high quality paper with good quality inks, and I'm selling prints now, which I'm really enjoying, and it's such a lovely tactile experience to do that. And I've started to find inspiration in Audubon, the original bird illustrator, and their style was to totally focus on the image of the bird and whatever plant they're on, and disregard the background and what have you was one of the styles I used. So I've tried to emulate that in photography with high key, and it's really enjoyable. So this I shot in my mother-in-law's backyard. I love these birds. They're such characters. That's from Kirstenbosch. So I'm really playing around and experimenting. I'm selling prints, which I love. Every print I sell, I'm like, what? Fantastic. I really, really am thrilled that people like them because I just love shooting them. I love printing them.
I love the look of these shots. It's, as I said earlier, I think they're some of my favorite bird shots that I've seen in a long time. I really, really enjoy them.
Oh, cheers, man. Oh, that means a lot to me. Thank you. I've tried to, we try and hide the fact that it's not all wilderness around us. And I'm starting to bring some of the modern environments into this. And also to cheat a bit. This is actually at a rehabilitation center. My favorite eagle, the rose eagle. And I think this looks like quite a, what's the word? Almost looks like I'm trying to make it look like a 1940s poster. And then one of my most successful pieces that I've sold is a triptych. This is a center part of a triptych over 7 meters long, where I've taken different high key images of weavers. I can shoot weavers all day and put them all together to create this sort of weaver village, essentially. So this is from a hotel in Indaba Hotel in Joburg. It was a commission for them. And there will be 2 on either side of it, which have a similar sort of feel.
It's fantastic.
And then lately, just come back from Waterberg, as you probably realize, and shooting a wonderful story up there in Marataba. And just speaking about people and the environment once again. Marataba is a beautiful environment, full of wonderful wildlife. And this guide, Ari Swiegers, is a tremendous guide. I haven't met a guide like him before. And he and I climbed up this one mountain to really get a good view of the area. And while we were up there, Ari pointed out this grinding stone. He found this grinding stone, old grinding stone, that people obviously had used up there. And we're talking about, how high are we? We're probably another 60 meters up from the valley floor there. And we walked further along and there were shards of pottery, which apparently by his investigation had been washed down from the summit. So people used to live on this hill, possibly, or at least use this hill. And then after that, we went to see other other points in the area where people have lived, smelting sites where people smelt iron. As I said before, these hills are full of iron. Cattle kraals and whatever. You told me about these cattle kraals where people would actually be buried. There were burial sites as well. The people would be buried beneath their cattle, which tells you how intrinsic, how involved people are with their cattle. But again, these are places which were as integral to humans as they are to wildlife. And I've been getting into drone photography lately, which I really love. It's a challenge. This was a drone shot I took of that area, as well as that. And
love it.
Yeah, I'm loving the flying aspect of it as well, and I'm feeling like a bird. So, as I get into drone photography, I also, it opens up a whole new avenue for me, and filmmaking as well. I've got a little film that I'll show if you have time. It's a 2-minute, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, it should be fine. We've got about 12 minutes left until Facebook kicks us off. So cool. as long as we're kind of a couple of minutes before that, we should be fine.
Okay, lekker. And then, yeah, that's my last still image. And then just what's in the bag. And you always like to see the bag. Here she is. Canon all the way. Sorry, Nikon folks. We've got 100-400, 5D Mark IV, 7D in the top. That's actually my wife's. I borrowed that from her. 2470, 1635, a drone with all the batteries and accoutrements, and of course backup discs. That is basically the equipment plus a tripod that I use. There we go.
Fantastic.
And last but hopefully not least, I'll show you that vid. I hope we can do it justice. This is still work in progress, so bear with me. There we go. And that, my friends, as I say, is the journey. Are there any thoughts or questions? I'd love to hear from you.
Just having a quick look here. Diona McLeod says, no words for how beautiful these shots are. Leon Jacobs, how's it, Leon? The Crone drone. Yeah, listen, I'm in awe over your photography. The work that you've shown here is absolutely fantastic. It's certainly inspired me to go out and whatever. And I think that's one of the things that I found with having these types of presentations made available to pretty much anyone, is that you start, your horizons start opening up, and you start thinking about possibilities as opposed to problems and challenges, and that's certainly what it does for me. That's all that we need. We just need at this point in time positivity and inspiration and potential. So you've given me that in spades, and it was overwhelming, fantastic. You know, if I could have tears in my eyes, I would. I could try and fake it, but it would just look silly because you know, I don't cry well. But dude, absolutely amazing. I think you've outdone my expectations. Well done, fantastic. I think if you want to you know, get onto the group a little bit later and just you know, answer comments, etc., please feel free. But yeah, thank you so much. You're an absolute rock star, and it's great to have you on.
Thank you so much, man. It was wonderful doing this, and Q, what you're doing is remarkable. I think please keep it going. You're inspiring everyone around us, and especially this time. So, and if there's anything, and I'm sure a lot of people agree, if there's anything we can do to help get this thing really rolling forward, just shout, because it is tremendous. And of course, I love your work, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think you know, if there is anything, if there was anything that people could do, it would be just to spread the word. Let's get as many photographers and people who love photography onto the group. It really is about trying to you know, uplift people's minds. Everything is corona, and you know, negativity and stress and anxiety. This offers a fantastic opportunity to just look at things from a different perspective, and you know, maybe 2 hours a day of wow, I would like to do that. I would like to be there. Can I go with next time? You know, that's the kind of thing. So you've done that, and everyone else has done that so far. So let's no pressure for the guys coming up. But yeah, thank you so much. You are a rock star, and I appreciate you greatly.
Thank you, buddy. Take care, man. All the
All
best,
right.
and thanks everyone. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.